Hello everybody and welcome to my new show. It's called Pole TV. It's kind of a new show that branches off of Ben TV. And the reasoning behind this show is Ben can't always put out episodes, as you know, as he likes. So we're doing this show to kind of push along my interviews faster, especially since my interviews are probably the most popular part of the show. So we're going to try this out for a little while and see what you people think, and if you like it, we'll continue on. My first interview will be with Joe Osorio, that's from West Virginia. And then after that, we're going to be doing the interview with George Smilovici. And finally, we're going to be doing the interview with Jake Gilroy of Forever Road. And so let's go ahead and start the show. Hello everybody, welcome to another interview, and today we have with us Joe Osorio from West Virginia. How you doing there, Joe?
Hi, how are you?
Oh, we're doing pretty good. I'm glad you can make it on Ben TV. First of all, I want to ask you a little bit about your background. How did you get started in the music business? I mean, is it just something like, you know, listening to music when you were a kid, or did it have something to do with your parents, or?
Well, when I was a kid, they used to have radio shows like, you know, radio dramas and stuff, and my grandma used to watch this stuff every day. And so at a certain time every night on the radio, she would call me, and I was like 8 years old, and I would sit there and watch these radio soap operas. One day she said, "There's something special I want you to watch after the show." So I'm like, "Sure, Grandma." So I was raised by her, by the way. So it was an amateur show. This guy came on and sang, and it was my dad. And it was a whole new rush for me. Like, I had heard music on the radio before. It was never really particularly like, you know, it wasn't nothing special. When I heard my dad, it did something to me. You know, it just like freaked me out. And I started becoming interested in guitar. And then later on, I played drums, like war drums at school, you know, like parade drums and stuff like that. And then when the whole, well, I guess, well, a little before the British invasion, you know, Roy Orbison and people like that, I started listening to that stuff. And of course, the Beatles and the Stones and all that, and Elvis. And I started noticing all this stuff has something, you know, something in common. There's a common thread running through all this stuff. And I couldn't put my finger on it. I was a kid, I didn't know from nothing, you know, really. But then, little by little, after years of listening and making comparisons and then finding out where it came from, I discovered the blues. And I've just never been the same since, dude. Since then, it's been like beyond passion, beyond obsession, you know. You know, I was the kind of guy, I came home from the military. I was in the military in '70. I came home on my first weekend pass. And I had a girlfriend who was the hairdresser for my band, who was gorgeous, by the way. Mm-hmm. I hadn't seen her in 5 weeks. So she got all dressed up in this really sexy thing and nice hair. And when I came home, she took off her high heel shoes and jumped in the bed. Well, my mom had my '58 Stratocaster plugged into my amp sitting in the corner, and I was like, and yeah, not gonna believe that, but I reached over and grabbed the guitar. It took about an hour before I came to and realized that the girl had left. But that's how obsessed I was with playing, and that's what I've been doing since, you know, playing in garage, basement bands, you know, bar bands and that, you know.
I see. Well, how many albums do you have out now?
Right now, there's two. There's one called New York on CD Baby, and there's one called Devil's Music Part 1 on Amazon.
Okay.
And I play.
Well, I guess you people out there will have to download that music and get some of his music so we can continue on, right?
Sure. Yeah. But I plan on putting 2 more things out between now and Christmas, because you know, I want to get married, man, so, and that takes money. You know,
what are your influences as far as music? I mean, I know there's a lot of blues musicians out there, famous ones, and I figured maybe some of them influenced you.
Well, there's like, of course, Hendrix, the Clapton, you know, and the more modern guys, Joe Satriani, and on the older guys, people like Chet Atkins, or, you know, I mean, I've been influenced by so many people. I mean, that that's not even evident. And when you hear me playing, you won't think that this guy listened to Chet Atkins. Or being from New York, sometimes I'd be playing and some country licks would like seep out. And the people I was playing would be like, "Where the hell did that come from?" And I'd be like, "I don't know." It's just like you feel like you're an antenna and you're picking up these things and they're just going through you, you know. And one morning I woke up and I was playing like Dickie Betts, man. Everybody looked at me and I said, "I have no idea where the hell that came from." But I love it. It's just like it's all good, you know. But Yeah, there's been a lot. The Beatles, of course, you know, and man, everybody, you know.
Right.
There's a particular cat that influenced me. I met him when I was about 13, 14 years old. A guy named Randy California.
Mm-hmm.
He used to play for a band called Spirit, and I met him in New York at Manny's. And at the time, he was playing with Hendrix in a band called Jimmy James and Blue Flame
Mm-hmm.
at the Cafe Wap. This is before. This is where Hendrix was discovered. And I met him then, and he was like such a cool cat, man. He was so knowledgeable and so sweet, man. He was just like the sweetest person, you know, a regular guy. He wasn't a rock star at all.
Right.
Then he went on to play with Spirit, which became in the States. It was a huge band at one time. I mean, they were big enough where Zeppelin, they had Zeppelin open for them. So
Right.
that says something. And over the years, I went to his shows, and every time he was always treating me special. Always. Last time I saw him in person was at a place called the Country Club in Reseda, and I was there. I was already married, but I was there with some ex-bandmates of mine and their managers, and we had a table, and it was Savoy Brown opening for Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was walking to go get a drink, Randy California came up, "Hey, Joey," and I said, "Hey," he had a concert in '76 in New York City that I ruined because I was howling and yelling, "Hey, dude!" I didn't know it was being recorded for radio. Following Tuesday, they played it over the radio, and man, all you could hear was me. So this night, I tell him, "Listen, man, I'm sorry about the '76 guy." He's like, "Man, forget about it." I said, "Where are you sitting?" I said, "I'm sitting over there." So he says, "Look, I'm busy, but I'll come by. All right, I promise you. Before I go on, I'll come by." So I go back to my table. I'm sitting with like two managers, the four band members, and their wives, and a big table full of people. All of us incurable Spirit fans.
Right.
We used to sneak through the back door at the Fillmore East to see them, and to us, Spirit was bigger than anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So after a little while, who comes walking up with a tray and two bottles of wine? Randy California. He goes, "Hey, Joey." I said, "Hey, man, come on and sit down." And all the people in that table, their mouths were like this. They were like, "You know him?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, we go back." I didn't really know him like that, but it was a cool thing. And to me, his dying is one of the biggest losses. To me, him and Hendrix were like the biggest. When Hendrix died, it affected me so deeply. I went AWOL. I was in the Army, and I ran off. I was gone for like 2 weeks before I could get my head back together, go back and do my military thing,
Right.
And when I found out about Randy California's death, it was devastating, especially the way he died. He died saving his son. His son was drowning, and he pulled him out of the riptide, and then. But he's one of the most fantastic guitar players.
Well, I guess that's about all the questions I really have for you, Joe, and I appreciate you coming on. And you're welcome to come back anytime if you have something new you want to plug, like a new CD or something.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a new one out pretty soon, so I'll let you know for sure.
Yeah, well, we appreciate that, Joe, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right.
All right, bye-bye.
This is something called Satan's Cradle. This is something I haven't released yet or done yet. Satan rocks the cradle, his angels made of man. Satan rocks the cradle, his angels made of man. Always hover around her. She went down to the crossroads for her soul to sell. She went down to the crossroads, Lord, for her soul to sell. She must have made a wrong turn. She wound up straight in hell. Woke up this morning, but a knocking at my door. Woke up this morning, but a knocking at my door. She said, "Hello, Satan." He said, "You know it's time." Satan rocks the cradle, his angel dug a grave. Say back, they say there's angels dug me. Got another voodoo woman. But baby, that's what I mean. Something like that.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's interview. And this week we have a real treat for you. We have George Smilovici from Sydney, Australia. How you doing there, George?
I'm very well, thank you, Paul. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. It's a pleasure to be talking to you, and it's a real honor to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
Let's talk about the beginning of George Smilovici. I'm sure it happened when you were real young. Perhaps maybe you could let us know a little bit about how you got started in the music and comedy business, because I think you do them both real well.
Thank you. Look, my father, Dan, he was a pianist and a wonderful pianist, and he influenced me a lot. As you know, I was born in Cuba, and my parents lived in Cuba for 10 years before I was born during Batista's reign, and then Fidel Castro came in and took over, and we left just as Fidel and Che were coming into Cuba. My influences, obviously, music-wise, were Cuban music, salsa, rumba, song, and my father was a jazz pianist, so you can imagine we had jam sessions at our house when I was just a little boy of like 4 years old. I remember all the guys from Buena Vista Social Club used to come round and play with my father, and so it was an incredible foundation for me music-wise. And with the comedy, well, I think that was just an act of God, really, because when I left university, I became a school teacher. I used to teach English and history, and although it was great while it lasted for about 2 years, my first love, music, led me basically into comedy, because I started doing little stories in between songs, and then I realized that I was getting laughs, so the comedy took over. And in 1984, after working at the Comedy Store for 4 years, cutting my teeth, I released a single called "I'm So Tough," which went #1 all over the world on the music charts. And I must say that besides being proud of that, I know I was very lucky, but besides being proud of that, what I'm really proud of is that when I'm Tough went #1, it actually knocked off one of the worst songs ever written, which was #1 at the time, and that was Stevie Wonder's "I Just Called to Say I Love You." And thank God that I actually knocked that off the #1 spot, because I mean, I love Stevie Wonder. I love all his stuff, except for that song. And I think a lot of people will agree with me.
Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, I never had a problem with the song, really, but I am glad that you I'm glad that you did become #1 on there, though.
Thanks.
I guess that once again proves that you're so tough. I guess that's how we.
That's right, I am tough.
Yeah, no, and it was interesting that you mentioned you being a school teacher. That must have been the whole premise behind that one music video you had where you were a school teacher and you had all those beautiful women in the classroom and everything. That must have been the whole idea behind that. I don't remember the name of it. YouTube didn't label it, but I can't remember what the song was.
It was called, the song was called Popularity.
Popularity, okay.
And,
yeah, and I thought it was a pretty good song and video, so.
My father was in that clip. He played the part of the headmaster.
Oh, okay. I'll have to watch that video again. I've only seen it the one time, but it wasn't long ago, so.
That's right.
So, well, you pretty much answered all my questions there, and I know that all of our viewers are
we'll be happy to hear the, the interview and about a little bit about you. And I just want to let you know it's been a pleasure talking to you. And if you ever want to come by and plug something new, just let me know, and we'll have you back on the show sometime.
Thank you very much, Paul.
You're welcome. And we'll be right back.
Hi. This is a piece that I wrote actually when I was 17 years old. And so it's given me a lot of time to practice. I hope you like it. It's called Bolero.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's interview. And today we have Jake Gilroy from Forever Road. How you doing, Jake?
Yeah, good, Paul. How are you today?
Oh, doing pretty good. I'm glad that you could spend a few minutes with us on Ben TV. So thanks for stopping by.
No problem. We're happy to be a part of Ben TV, man. It's starting to get a bit of interest on the net, and yeah, we're rapt to be a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, and I'm glad that so many people like the show. Let's start off by talking about your history behind music. I mean, when did this all start for you? I'm sure it started when you were real little, maybe. And maybe give me some of your influences. Why don't you give me a little bit of a background on that?
Sure, Paul. I started to learn guitar at the age of 6 years old. I taught myself to play out of the back of a songbook, just basically using chord charts and things like that. So then I started getting into writing lyrics at about the age of 12. Yeah, and believe it or not, my first song I wrote was about a girl leaving me and stuff like that, which was pretty funny because when you're 12 years old, you sort of don't even have girlfriends anyway. But yeah, so it went on from there. And then I've been through a few bands in my life, and about 2 years ago, I met Jay Seaney, who's our lead guitarist at Forever Road, and we decided to form a band. And yeah, we recorded one album, which has had a few hits off it over here in Australia. And we just released our first single off the next album. Actually, this week we released it. So yeah. And in regards to influences, because I'm a writer, I like all the typical classic writers like Jim Morrison and Bob Dylan. John Lennon's a big favourite of mine. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, those are pretty good bands. When it all boils down to it, it's always the 50s and the 60s, and maybe even the 70s too, that really inspire a lot of people. And I'm glad that you feel the same way.
Absolutely. There's so many great songwriters out there from that era, you know, too. Like even like Tim Buckley and Mick Jagger and Keith Richards and all that sort of stuff. You know, it's like the music was raw and you know, it was delivered raw. You know, so it was really good. Yeah.
You know, that's good. That's another band you just mentioned there, the Rolling Stones, you know, and the Beatles, you know, things like that. I've always been, you know, kind of a big fan of those bands, personally. You just mentioned a minute ago something about an album. You said that just came out recently?
Yeah, we just released the first single on Monday this week for the next album. So we quickly recorded the single just prior to Christmas. The song is called Woohoo, and we plan to be finishing the album first week of April. Sorry, we go back into the studio to finish that. So we want to get it done sooner, but my wife is expecting our third baby, so I need to be around for that. So yeah.
Okay. And what are you planning on calling the name of the album?
At this stage, we've got a couple of names. The one that we like the most is Country Gone Wild. It's sort of like an edgy rock country sound rather than country rock. So we use a lot of overdrive and heavier guitars and sort of a little bit like what Big and Rich have been doing in the more recent, you know. So yeah, trying to drive that American country sound over here in Australia. So yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess that's about all that we really need to know at this time. But again, we want to thank you for coming by, and you're welcome back anytime if you have something new to promote or anything like that. We'll be glad to have you back. And so once again, we thank you for stopping by and talking to us. And we'll be right back.
All right. Thanks, Paul.
I was standing on the bar drinking by myself when I saw her looking at me. She gave me a wink and a saucy smile, made me go with the knees. The skirt was shut, though the boots were long, I could hardly swallow my beer. A little tank top, it was tight and snug, and all that I could see was the country style, blue red lips and her hair was wild. Oh, you're gonna be mine tonight. I went woo, I'm strong enough. Country guy with a pickup truck. Now I'm gonna get me some love, yeah.
Wow.
Two months later, I was back in the bar, feeling sorry for myself. Love with the fun, love with the ladies, I was going through a big crowd. Out of nowhere, she cut my eye, she started coming my way. This country boy's gonna have some fun. Rowdy take today with some woo, a country smile, ruby red lips and the hair is wild. Oh, you're gonna be mine tonight. I went woo, and strong enough. I'm just a country guy with a big old truck. Now I'm gonna get me some love, yeah. Get me some. I said, ooh, a country smile, ruby red lips and hair is wild. Oh, you're gonna be mine tonight. I said, ooh, I'm strong enough, I'm just a country guy with a big old truck. Now I'm gonna get me some love, yeah. I said, ooh, I'm just a